Greetings and beam venue. Welcome to Midnight Broadcast. Tonight we have 3 tales from Huma-Huma.
For some backstory, I will need to divulge into my high school life a bit. Mainly to talk about David. David was one of those kids. Creepy, unkempt, and very awkward. But many hung out with him due to him always having the money to buy friendship. No one ever had a good thing to say about him. Always smelled. Never seemed to wash. Never seemed to be able not to make things awkward. Nothing too crazy at first, but around senior years when he became very unhinged. He had always been creepy when it came to personal space. Walked too close. Sometimes accidentally touched either me or a friend of ours regardless of sex. And always did it with an air of, if you say yes we fuck, if you say no it's a joke. But now he went out of his way to make it clear what his intentions were around us. At one point he got punched by one of our friends when he accidentally groped her boob. And one time he got full-on expelled for sneaking into the women locker room and gave the excuse that he was too high to know where he was. No, really, that was his excuse. Once he got expelled, I only heard about him here and there. Nothing wild, but more like Bigfoot. It was sightings and rumors. So let's just fast forward to the story at hand. Be me. Working at a call center. Get put in charge of a trainer's room. Think of it like teacher aide but for trainers, to see who would be good to take a spot as a trainer once they or someone else leaves the position. Main thing I need to do is be like the hip fellow the trainees talk to, since many who come in are usually straight out of high school and I was still 21 at the time. Nothing out of the usual, but we have people closer or older than I am this time around. All around nice people, chill enough to even go out and drink with. But among them I see a familiar face. The same fat, unkempt creeper I knew back in high school. Oh no. I try my best to conceal my identity. I was very fat in high school, but over that time I /fit/ted up, so it wasn't hard to conceal who I was with so much of the weight gone. Trainer then yells, "Yo, Anon, can you help me out with this? Fuck.png. David's eyes immediately lock onto mine and he bolts towards me. I tried to get away and pretend like I didn't see him. Luckily that was enough to get away. Think maybe he was just young, dumb, and full of hormones back in HS and he's changed. Nope. No less than a week goes by before one of my female trainees comes to me. "Mr. Anon, can I talk to you in private?" "Sure, let's go to the room." We sit there for a good 5 minutes in silence before she finally tells me that another trainee has made her feel uncomfortable. "Aw fuck," I think. "Can I know who it is?" "David," she says. Said that earlier in the week she was sitting next to him when she asked if she could borrow a pen for some paperwork she needed to fill out. She continues by saying he not only took a pen out of his pocket whilst making lewd gestures, but as he gave her the pen he slightly rubbed his hand on hers. Tells me that she got very uncomfortable but didn't know who to talk to. Tell her I'll speak to David and to leave it to me. Next day, call David to a meeting and tell him to stop fucking around and that this isn't high school. If some shit happens it's on my and the trainer's ass, and it can get him arrested. David just tries to say she wanted it, man. She was so into it I saw how wet she got. Aw fuck's sake. David, if you do this again I'm going to have to not only write you up but suspend you without pay. LOL. Okay. Decide that maybe that's all he needs and move on. Next couple of days get complaints from both the men and women in the class about how creepy he is. Tell them if you want him out please make a report about this. Company has a policy where you can't complain on someone else's behalf no matter how much evidence you may have on the person. Over the next few days everything from complaints about his smell to his dress to even his work ethic was sent to me. Few examples. He vomited on his jeans and came to work with the same jeans unwashed for a week. He smelled like urine for 3 days straight and got very close to people when they told him that fact. He kept slightly touching or poking people when they told him to stop multiple times. He full-on reached for someone's dick at one point. All these complaints and not one report. Fast forward 2 months into training and a trainee comes to me that she wants to file a complaint on him. Oh shit. GIF. Lady goes on to tell me that David followed her to her car the night before. He was asking her for a ride and she refused more than 3 times. Finally she got in her car and was about to go when she saw David put his backpack on her hood. He then proceeded to try and open her car door. "Let me the fuck in. I want a ride home. I'll die without a ride home. You fucking slut. You whore. F-U-C-T," he yelled according to her. She finally just decided to drive off, but not before he hit her window and cracked it. Okay, this is where it ends. JPG. But wait, there's more. As I was writing the report to turn it into PR, another woman comes in. "Oh no, Ms. Anon, what can I do for you?" She begins to cry her eyes out. Oh. Goes on to tell me about how David had cornered her during the previous week's team meeting outside. Says he looked like a man possessed and looked up and down at her like he was just waiting. She got so scared she ran out of the room and just left. She did in fact leave early that day without a word until later that night, where I got a text telling me she had an extreme emergency and I just shrugged it off and let it go. She also wants to file a report and I say okay. Whilst I get the paperwork, she asks me, "Is he going to get fired?" I tell her that since he now has 2 reports to his name, it is a very real possibility, but just in case, keep your distance and tell me right away if anything happens. She leaves and I am now stuck with having to write 2 reports for this guy, and in some way I'm relieved because it just meant I won't have to deal with him much longer. I turn in the reports and notice David outside. Think about talking to him and maybe, just maybe, making him understand how fucked he really is. I decide to not and just walk off. All of a sudden I feel a hand on my shoulder and I realize from just the smell it's David. Now what? Jiff. Turn to David and there he is looking at me like he wanted to just stab the first thing he saw. What did those bitches fucking tell you? Did they shit talk me? Did they go behind my fucking back? Those fucking cheating whores. I didn't answer his question, but I did tell him that he has to make sure to watch himself from now on unless he wants to be put on some sort of registry. A month passes and the brass doesn't deem it enough to fire this fucking creep. I'm just as surprised as anyone. Finally the fateful day comes. David's finest hour. Starts off normal, but for the past month we had David in a separate cubicle away from the class at the behest of our PR department. Finally lunchtime goes and of course my job is to keep a lookout for David. If anyone here has worked for the certain company I worked for, you know they run their shit like they do the mob, really shady, and no one outside usually gets involved, and people on the floor or in management get used for, say, unusual secondary tasks. Go about my lunch having to make sure David doesn't leave my sight or go near anyone. Most of the team I was helping train felt annoyed with me during that time, even though they knew they weren't supposed to. Anyways, get to about 3:30, almost time to let the trainees go home. All of a sudden David comes up to me. Looks me in the eye. Like he tried telling me something with only his gaze. "Can I help you, sir? I need you to teach me something again, sir." Okay, sure, what do you need help with? He takes me to his cubicle. I see him reach into his bag. He takes out a list. It has written on it the names of the people who have either filed a report or just generally complained about him. "David, what is this?" "Just a list, sir. I just want to make sure they get what comes to them someday." "What?" "You know, I have a gun or 2, not mine, but I can use them." "David, you do know what you're telling me can be taken as a threat." "So what? You're my friend. If I kill them, you can help me, right? Remember I gave you $1 in high school? I scratched your back, now scratch mine." Decide that enough was enough and go to the PR person. Tell her the shit that happened, and she tries to make every excuse as to why it may not have been so bad or why we can't just fire him. Tell her that besides me 2 other people filed official reports and everyone has complained more than once about him. Finally she gives way and say they will investigate it. Tell her if she wants to see it, then her best option would be to get him to show you his bag right now. Reluctantly decides to go and check his bag along with some security guards. David, knowing that he's fucked, tries to make up any excuse he can. No, they are all just bullying me. They're hating me cause I'm gay. I have bipolar depression and need help. I'm a virgin with rage. I'm not kidding. Literally anything he can to try and get out of it. David, knowing he can't get out of this, snaps and lunges at the PR women. He actually gets a good few hits in before the security guards and I pried him off of her. The whole thing makes enough of a scene to get people to look at what's going on. David continues to try and fight his way out of it all and even takes a swing at me before the head trainer, who was former military sergeant, comes and just chokes him out. We toss David outside and call the police. PR lady files a report that he went and assaulted her. Police also find about 3 bags of coke in his bag. Arrested on assault and possession charges. He gets hauled off, hopefully never seen again. After the dust settles, I finally decide to rest at my desk. As I was going back to my desk, I found another note that was from David. If you're reading this, it's because I wanted to see your face last. I wanted you to be the final one I shot. I want to be the last thing you fucking see, you traitor, you man whore. I hate you and I will fucking kill you. Never heard if he is out or still in custody, but I won't lie when I say I still look over my shoulder sometimes. Oh, and here's a pic of the note that I kept. Demon Anon back. Just gonna repost my Eddie story too. Be about 1982. Walking around Arizona. Eating at a diner with that day's share. Get approached by some guy. Hello, my name is Alan. Had a weird feeling about him. But as someone who roams freely from state to state, you kind of have to be wary of anyone and everyone. Alan begins to talk to him as if they were old friends. Starts talking about some money-making opportunity. Red flags going off every which way. Either prostitution or selling drugs. Alan says nothing like that. Just a simple job where Eddie has to drive and drop something off. Yeah, definitely drugs, Eddie thought to himself. To humor the guy, Eddie asked how much he's willing to pay. Alan said, how does 5K sounds to ya? Just to drive something somewhere? Yup. Not even a long drive, hour and a half. Leave the package off, and we're done. Eddie tells me his red flags are at crimson at this point, but he still said yes. Alan tells him to meet him there in 2 days. 2 days pass and Eddie meets up where Alan told him to. Only thing, there is a car and a note. Hey. Glad you came. Payment is in the glove compartment. Just promise me you don't check the trunk, okay? We'll know if you peek. Good luck, friend. And be sure to use all the money, don't want it going to waste. Eddie already knows this shit wasn't worth it, but a man doesn't go back on his word. Gets in the car, foul-smelling thing, like it hadn't been washed after a big party. He says he may have even seen some mold on it, but he didn't care. It was only an hour and a half drive, so he can just drive with the window down. All through the drive he notices some strange-looking people checking him out. Tells me this is during the time even though taboo homosexuality really started getting more prevalent, at least from what he saw. Shrugs it off and continues to drive to the next town. Says it was around but not in Tucson. Gets out of the car and waits. Waits for a few hours and nothing. Wonders where this guy is. Was about to go to the store for a cigarette when a car drove up. Hey, finally, Eddie said. Alan was not the one who came out. This very sickly man comes out. Nice suit, but he looked paler than white. You could almost see the veins in perfect detail, Eddie said. You, Eddie? Alan told us about you. He spoke as if he's never spoken before. Yeah, him, Eddie. Alan sent you? Yes, you have what we came for. Eddie says the more he spoke, the less coherent it sounded. Like he had only learned how to speak for today, but not enough to sound human. Yeah, it's in the trunk, he said. The weird man gives him a strange smile, again like he'd never done it before. Everything he did was inhuman-like in nature. From the way he walked to the way he spoke, hell, even the way he breathed felt like he was born yesterday and got a cram session on how to be a human being. As the man began to walk towards the car's trunk, he looked again at Eddie. You did not Look at it. Nope, it's all in there without a fingerprint on it. As the man began to open the trunk, he made this disgusting noise. Eddie described it like as if he had an orgasm. Such a grotesque sound, even Eddie felt creeped out and had to ask, "Hey, you okay there?" The pale man, almost at light speed, turned and yelled, "You said you didn't see." "What?" You looked. The voice has now gone from a faint whisper to a shriek that hurt Eddie's ears. "What the fuck are you talking about? I didn't see anything, man." Fucking thing tosses a finger at him. A fucking finger. Eddie finally saw what was in the trunk. It was a person. Couldn't tell exactly if it was a male or female, could only see the top of the scalp. "You keep looking." Eddie, now officially fucking scared, decides to try and walk backwards. The pale man now begins to walk towards him. "Hey man, I didn't do anything, alright. Let's calm down." Pale man begins to run at him. Running at him. The thing that was so limp and lame looking now begins to run at him. Eddie says fuck it and tries to run off and hope he can get away. He begins running as fast as he can in any direction he can. Hopes he can at least make it to a gas station. He can hear the man running at him. He's too close to get away. Eddie finally knows it's either the pale man or him. Turns around and takes out his pocket knife. The moment he turns, the pale man is right in front of his face. Thing tackles him down and tries to gouge his eyes out, shrieking at the top of his lungs. Eddie tries to stab it, but the thing is so much heavier than he looks, and the pale man landed on his arms, making him stabbing it harder than usual. Feels complete and total fear from this thing. Its eyes are fully black looking. Hell, even his face looks like it was getting paler. Is this where I'm going to die? Is this thing human? Who the fuck is Alan? Finally, he gets just the right angle to push the pale man off and is able to swing his knife. Pale man doesn't even flinch and lunges at him again. Eddie finally just lunges and feels the knife hit. Pale man now lets out a shriek even louder than before. This shriek is so loud Eddie actually felt his ears ring. Even after he felt his ears almost feel like they're numb. Pale man winces in pain and continues to shriek. It begins to run and doesn't even go near its own car. It just flees. Eddie watches it as it just runs away. As it leaves his sight, he finally begins to relax just a bit. The pale man is now just gone. Almost no trace of it. Eddie looks down at the floor and his knife. No blood. No fluid on it at all. It's bone dry like it was new. What the fuck? Finally, Eddie looks at the trunk. He knows he shouldn't. But he goes to look at the body. He couldn't even tell it's a person. It's fucking mangled. Only thing he could identify is hair. But it's just all disgustingly murdered. But he could tell it was intentionally done. So no one could identify it, no one could report it. Eddie just books it to the nearest town. Goes to the local police in some place called Saddlebrook. Police tell him they'll look into it. Seeing how they looked at him, he knew they probably just thought it was a homeless man who went crazy. To this day he doesn't know what came of it since he left the town very soon after. All he knows is that he thinks he was a deliverer for some crazy ritual, or maybe some sick cannibal. He couldn't make heads or tails of it to the day he died. Even I can't really think of what it was. Maybe it was some weird governmental sacrifice or just a weird mob hit. All I know was that's the last time I did anything for 5K Eddie. My skinwalker story. Be me about 18 years old. Friend, we will call him Daryl, invites me to his cabin in northern Texas for the weekend. Going to be me, him, and 2 other friends. Jason and Ethan will be their code names. Tells me we're probably just going to sit around and drink some beers he knows his dad left for him at the cabin. Sure, why not? Get ready, and my mother tells me to be careful. Nothing unusual, but she said it with a very serious tone, almost like she knew something weird was going to happen. Shake it off is just nerves since it was my first time leaving town this far. Get ready and leave. Nothing wild goes on the trip to the cabin, but can't shake how seriously my mom said to be careful. More feeling that weird feeling of maybe I should call her to check on her rather than anything spooky. Call my mom at the cabin. Reception was a bit shaky, but being this far out it is to be expected. She tells me to watch out just in case there is bears and shit. Yes, of course. Hang up and begin to set up the cabin, all the while feeling a bit uneasy. Like someone is watching us. Think in my head. Well, no shit, you feel that you're in bumfuck nowhere, Texas, in the middle of the woods. Once again shake the feeling off and go back to my friends. Fast forward to about 8 p.m. Daryl begins to take the beers out. Begin drinking and talking about girls at school. Nothing too crazy until Jason tells everyone to quiet down. Did you all hear that? Hear what? The wind. Eden says, trying to make a funny remark. Jason just stared him down and Eden knew immediately to stay shut. We all stay quiet for about a minute until I start hearing this very low but audible growl. It almost sounds like a weird snore, like when someone has terrible sleep apnea. Tell Daryl if this place is known for bears. Daryl tells me that the most we'd see out here would be deer, maybe a small mountain lion, but nothing like a bear. Daryl gets up to check with Jason and they were the only two with firearms. Hear Jason yelling if anyone is out there and seemingly no response. Then suddenly a shot from Daryl's gun along with a holy shit can be heard. Eden and I jolt up and run outside to check what happened. See Jason visibly shook. Daryl / pupils were almost his entire eye, it seemed. Asked Jason what happened and all he could say was, "Some big motherfucker just came out into the porch light." Tried to lunge at Jason but Daryl was able to get around off at his direction. Doesn't think he'd hit him but he definitely spooked it. The man runs off with a strange gurgled speech, almost like someone trying to talk when they've got peanut butter in their mouth. Start thinking exactly what it could have been. Ask Jason and Daryl what he looked like. Jason said he was a tall man, close to about 6 feet 11 inches. For the record, I'm 6 feet 5 inches and Jason was 6 feet 4 inches, so anyone bring that much taller than us wasn't common. Daryl said he looked like he was out of the sun for years. Totally pale. Almost no color in his face. Hair was greasy and matted. He looked like he came out of a swamp, all sweaty and dingy. Jason said he almost looked manic when he saw them. Like he hadn't seen a person in years. The best I could describe it was almost like he didn't know what another person was. We all decide to go to the cabin for the night since it was too late to drive out of the woods we were in. Decide to lock every door and stay on lookout one at a time to make sure whoever that was doesn't come back. We're each taking turns from youngest to oldest. My turn comes around 4 a.m. Wasn't drinking as much as they were, but I was still a little buzzed. For some reason we decided the beer was better to drink than water. Stupid panicked teenager thinking. As I drink the last sip of the beer I hear the familiar growl again. Already the gun Jason had given me and prepared for the worst. As the thing came into the light suddenly I saw it. This giant man, almost 7 feet, with pale skin, almost dead looking, staring at me. The eyes he gave me weren't one of confusion or fear. They were of murderous intent. He stared at me for what seemed like an eternity before he began making his move. I pointed the gun at him and yelled for it not to move and that I would shoot. And he smiled. This motherfucker smiled. The type of smile you give someone when you know you've won. At this point I almost felt frozen. Complete utter fear all through my body. And then he spoke. Said one phrase and no more. Holy shit. That's Daryl's voice. How? How the fuck is he imitating Daryl's voice? As I come to the realization I'm probably dead, I noticed its face. It looked like Daryl. Not 1:1, but like it had changed its eyes, nose, and mouth to imitate the face of Daryl. I begin yelling at him. Who fuck me are you? Get away. Get away, goddammit. My yells were loud enough to wake up Jason, who came running with his gun. As he came out, all I could hear was, Daryl? That isn't Daryl, I said. That thing isn't anyone, it's not fucking human. As I said that, the thing lunged at me and took a big swipe. I'm not a light guy, 250 at time. This thing flung me away like paper. Like it had superhuman strength. As I lay on the ground gripping my ribs, I saw Jason begin to shoot at the thing. He hit it at least 3 times that I saw. 2 in the chest and 1 around what I think was its arm. Around this time, Eden and the real Daryl came out. The beast, now looking more like Daryl, began to smile and gurgle. Daryl himself began to vomit out of sheer tension. As Jason kept the gun pointed at the beast, all it did was walk slowly back into the woods, still keeping that creepy, strange smile, as if he had just won a game or something. A smile of victory. Almost 5:30 am once is all said and done. We sat in silence the entire time. I had some bruised ribs and a cut on my arm. Daryl was visibly traumatized. Eden pounding away at the beers. Jason cleaning his gun, and almost like a schizo continually checks outside for any signs of the beast. Finally, light comes. We pack up everything and decided to go home. The ride home was nothing special. No one said anything. No one even tried to. We just kept looking at the road. Around in 3 hours into our drive back, Daryl finally spoke up. Why did it look like me? Of all of us, why did it choose me? Eden tried to call Daryl down, but he was too shaken. Finally, Jason stops the car and tells Daryl to just shut up. We don't know why it looked like you. We don't even know what the fuck it was. So just shut up, try to relax, and we can think about it when we get home. Finally get home. I got to my room and tried to forget the night before. Too many questions. What exactly was that thing? Heard later it may have been a skinwalker, but I don't know a thing about them. To this day, only 2 of us are left in contact. Jason moved Canada. Daryl is in a mental institute for unrelated causes. Eden is the only one I talk to regularly. Every now and then we still talk about that night. Still get chills, but we've never gotten any real answers.
And we thank you for helping Midnight Broadcast reach 1,000 subscribers.
Thank you for subscribing to Midnight Broadcast. More Greentext from X are filming a new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight at Central Time.